This ball, let's go.
Get ready for Beyond the Arc, the show that eats, sleeps, and breathes the hardwood. Featuring two guys who know how to move on the court.
You got a defender in your way, you take him to the left, you take him back to the right, and he's falling back, and you just Jay right in his face. And then you look at him. And then you say what?
A couple of basketball junkies who shine the spotlight on everyone in the world of hoops.
I got game, she got game, we got game, they got game, he got game.
It's the coach, Bryan Fulford.
My entire adult life, I've never used the expression game face.
And the scout, Steve Barnhart from HardwoodHoopsCentral.com.
That boy is good.
Gentlemen, the court is yours.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Beyond the Arc, presented by TNT Elite Hoops, live here in the 740 The Game studios and the iHeartRadio network. My name is Bryan Fulford, and I'm joined by my partner in the backcourt, the one and only Steve Barnhart from HardwoodHoopsCentral.com. Steve, no applause, but how you doing tonight, my friend?
I'll give myself applause then.
There you go.
My ego will allow me to do that.
Bam. Beautiful, beautiful. Behind the glass, pushing the buttons, my man Chris. So here we are another night doing what we love to do, talking basketball. We want you to interact with us in the multitude of ways that we have continually tried to make or put out there for ourselves. We've got Twitter.
At BTA Hoops.
Facebook.
Searching Beyond the Arc podcast. Like, follow. You
can also check out our mini podcast that we have done on the Blog Talk Radio Network.
Yes.
We
have Stitcher now, where you can get our backlog of our episodes for this show. And then I've been uploading things on our YouTube page. So when you go to YouTube, you're going to search Hardwood Hoops Central, and you're going to find different things on our YouTube page. So you'll be able to find old episodes of the radio show on there.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yes. All right. So let's get right into it with our opening tip for this show. And let's get right into, Steve, what would you do if you were in an event where it was a, do or die, winner take all situation where you just had to play? But if you played and played well, there was an opportunity for you to walk away with a big payday. How would you perform in that kind of situation?
I would hope I would overperform. I would hope that whatever I expect of myself, I would overperform, because I would think that if there was a big payday, others would be aware of that as well. So therefore, I'd have to step my game up. Would you say?
I would say.
Okay.
Well, that situation and that type of event just took place and finished up this past weekend, and it's called, quite simply, the basketball tournament.
Excellent marketing. Excellent.
You think so?
It's simple.
TBT, the basketball tournament, and it is what it is. It's a single elimination basketball tournament with normal basketball rules. The one catch, though, the winning team walks away with $1 million. The losing team walks away with nothing.
You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
That's it. Plain and simple.
I like it, though.
Plain and simple.
I like it.
And it's a wonderful, and this is the second year of this tournament.
Right.
Last year, in its inaugural year,
right,
the grand prize was $500,000.
Right.
And it only consisted of 32 teams. And this year, they expanded to a 97-team field.
Right.
Actually, 96 plus the champion from the previous year,
Defending
so you get
champion.
97.
Right.
And the winners took home $1 million.
Right.
Winner take all.
Correct.
So, and we're watching this, and of course, from last year to this year, the television coverage. You had ESPN covering it this year, which I think by the time, to tell you the true success of this event was listening to the number of shows talking about it, the
right.
number of websites that covered the event,
mm-hmm.
and in large part probably thanks to television.
Right.
But also because of the great niche in the format.
Right.
And I know that's something that you were really big on as we talked about.
Well, I love it. And when you're talking about the winner, the team, which is comprised of basically you've got the players, you've got a coach, you've got a GM, you've got a booster. The GM is the guy that knows the players to put together. Okay, they go out and they find the players, they put together the team, just like a GM would in pro sports. Coaches obviously, and the booster is the guy that spreads the word. Gets the information out to fans, gets them to go on to thetournament.com and actually register under that team's website to essentially show support. And it requires those teams to market themselves. They don't charge an entry fee to get in, so it's up to you to get the popular vote, needless to say. So you've got the top 32 most popular teams of the 96 going into the regional round, and they will get what's called a popular buy. So it benefits you to get as much support as possible.
And you've got the four regions, of
right?
course.
You've got the Northeast, Midwest, West, and the South. And of all those regions, there's 24 teams from each region plus the defending champion.
And they are seeded. And I just want to
right.
in each region, teams were seeded 1 to 24 based on any number of criteria from
experience level, popularity.
Right.
It's a mixture of things, but it basically comes down to the popularity and as well as the experience level. So therefore, if you've got a bunch of Division I guys or ex-Division I guys or guys who have played professionally, your experience level goes up and overall for the team. So you're awarded a value per player, and the higher value that you have for your team, the more experience you have. The cool thing about it is that I like, Brian, 95% of that $1 million goes to the team.
Right.
Okay, but the number one overall fan, 5% goes to the fans, but the number one overall fan, the person that got the most people to come and support the team, gets $5,000. You didn't have to play a lick, and you get $5,000.
Exactly.
And then fans 2 through 21 get $1,000 each. 22 through 51 get $500 each. And then it caps out at 91. So 52 through 91 get $250 each. Look, that's not bad. You're basically being paid to more or less market. And, it's not even so much marketing. It's just saying, hey, look, I know some of these guys in this team. I really like this. And, last year's team that won aligned themselves with Coaches versus Breast Cancer.
Well, first off, that team was from where?
Chicago.
No, the team that
they're based out of Chicago.
The team that won last
year. They're mostly comprised of former Notre Dame players.
Ah, right. Fighting alums, I think is what they were called. Mm-hmm. Mostly ex Notre Dame players.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the cool thing about it is you get all these people to put the. I'll put it to you like this. I was reading through just the who was there. I was reading through different articles. There was a number of former NBA players, 40 in fact. You had former college team, former college players getting together with ex-teammates. You had like the Gators. You had guys, like Jason Williams, Eric Murphy, Matt Walsh, those type of guys getting together. You had former Indiana Hoosiers getting together, Christian Watford, Jordan Holes, Will Sheehy. You had Marshall Henderson even put together a team, mostly comprised of some former Ole Miss players, but then also some guys from the Dallas area. You had Spurs forward Matt Bonner. He was a general manager for a team, and Michael Rappaport. He was a coach for a team that featured some former NBA players, including Brian Scalabrine. You had a team like Boeheim's Army, which that's the Syracuse Orange. So you had former players from Syracuse, Hakeem Warwick, Eric Davendorf, and there was other teams like UConn, Georgetown, Oklahoma, Virginia, putting in former multiple players in. And then you had another infamous summer league, the Drew League, put in one of their defending champions. I think it's LA United.
LA United. Unified. Well, UNFD.
Yeah, UNFD, right.
Right, I think that's what they're
And they're coached by LA Laker Nick Young. And they're actually
Swaggy P.
Right, and they're led by Pan Am American basketball player Bobby Brown, the guy who led that team in scoring.
Right. Well, there were more than 125 players that had either NBA or NBA Development League experience in the tournament.
Right.
This particular tournament won by you basically had to win 6 games. If I'm doing the math correctly, I think it was actually in the championship you have 2 teams that had won 6 games.
Mm-hmm.
Overseas Elite ended up being the tournament winner.
Right.
And they played a great game, and it came down to a close finish against Team 23, a team of guys based out of primarily Arizona. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that, as you were talking about what was kind of unique about this league, every team was given or afforded their own logo. A logo was created for them. So everything was first class. As I'm reading comments by former players, that's what really made them enjoy this experience. And reading comments that even though Team 23 ended up losing, they had a great experience. It was first class all the way from what you hear, from the way the event was run, from, of course, the marketing aspect. The teams they had professional logos. I mean, you can go onto the website. It's the tournament. TheTournament.com.
Yep, and you can create your own page as a team, and
exactly.
That's where you market it.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a store, so you can buy, fan gear, and at an affordable price. I mean, it was like $20. Right. So everything that was done first class. Yeah. I guess one of the things that are curious for me, I always think about the financials. I kind of got into, who's organizing the financials. I heard the story, for example, of the Fort Wayne Mad Ants, which essentially there is an NBA D-League team, the Fort Wayne Mad Ants, but the GM of the Mad Ants, which was one of the teams I believe that made it to the Final Four, they actually their GM is a part of the NBA DL organization, and he actually put his own money up into helping to get these guys to these games so that they were there, help put the roster together. So he invested his own money, and he was part of the split. I mean, that was one of the cool things. Every time they showed on ESPN, they showed how much each team was going to get. This guy's share was worth maybe $100,000 or $90,000, and it all varied because, of course, you had some guys who played or made it to the early part, the regionals, and then you had guys who went to the Super 17, and then you had guys who went to the Final Four, and based on the number of games you played, kind of determined your share. It seems like everything is a fair system. It was well done. Now think about the future, though. Right. What about the future of this tournament?
I just like the wide open nature of it. I mean, you've got endless possibilities, and the fact that the prize is so large, and you get to play really good competition. You get the competitive nature, you get the payoff, and you get a first class run tournament. So it's not something cheesy. It's not just some tournament where you're just getting a bunch of ex-pros or ex-college guys and throwing them out on the floor and just saying, okay, let's see who's the best team. And there's elements to it that are unique and that actually get people interested. And what I was going to say earlier is you can actually align yourself with a charity, and 100% of the proceeds for your winnings can go to that charity, which is what the Notre Dame Fighting Alums. What is that?
I think it's Fighting Alums.
Fighting Alums. Like that's what they did last year.
Right.
And that's a good way to get your fan base up because, of course, if that charity is going to back you, of course, they're going to help spread the word. And, a cause like Coaches versus Breast Cancer, that's going to be a really worthwhile cause for people to support, but then also they're going to get the word out for you. So I think it's really unique in that way.
Look, now, of course, one of the things that you talked about, and we've already pointed out, you've got a high level of interest from whether it be recently retired or even current NBA players.
Right.
When this started, the whole concept was the team next door could be a part of this open tournament. If your team was, whether you were a rec league team, a pro-am team, a group of former players, it was sort of anybody who's who. Do you think that as more players with professional experience start getting involved,
right,
do you think it'll lose some of its authenticity or originality at all?
No, because it's not like you're limited. It's not like they're going to say, well, you can't be eligible. You can be as long as you can get 7 players in and have 100 fans supporting you. You're eligible to possibly make the 24 teams within your region. Now, whether or not you make it is a completely different story because at the end of the day, it's going to come down to who are going to be the most competitive teams. So, while you may be able to get the criteria in order to be eligible, doesn't necessarily mean you have the team that's going to be picked to play within your region. So I already think that element of anybody can get in, while it's true, you can certainly put a team in, it doesn't necessarily mean you'll get picked. So I think people going into that would, if they do their research, they'll understand that. So it behooves you to put together the best team possible. And that's why you need a good GM, a good booster, people who can help get a good collection of players.
Now, if you could see a group or a team, from maybe the past 10 years, and when we originally talked this, you threw a team out there that I was like, I don't know if anybody would see these guys.
It would never happen.
But what can you think of any teams that hey, I'd love to see these guys get back together?
I mean. Yeah, I mean, if I
the
sat
example,
there
let's talk about the example you talked about.
I use like for example, and I know it would never happen because obviously there's a falling out of relationships there and a lot of other
not
X
the
factors.
age?
Well, the age, of course, but the relationships is probably the biggest part of it.
Sure.
But a team like the Fab Five, I think that'd be pretty cool to see that. I know it would not happen. But somebody out there screaming like, "Oh, you're an idiot."
Oh, they're too old.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying something in that vein of, hey, these guys are done, but it'd be kind of cool to see them play again. Guys who were, mid-30s. Some of these guys are older than that.
How about a team like the Flintstones?
There you go.
I mean, that wasn't that long ago.
No.
Seeing a team like that, those guys kind of get together.
But I kind of like what we've seen. Guys, some of the teams that have Christian Wofford's, guys like that who aren't that far removed from playing.
Oh yeah.
And are able to pull together ex-college teammates, and they've got that rapport. And so it's not hard to say, okay, let's get some of the old guys together and play some ball.
Obviously, as the popularity of the tournament goes into the future, mm-hmm. and you got to think that the pot may possibly increase.
Of course.
Would you, if you were organizing this event,
mm-hmm.
would you create an opportunity? Let's say next year's pot, you got an opportunity to have a $2 million pot. Would you put an opportunity, or would you put some money in for the second place team, or will you keep with the winner take all motif?
No, I would do the winner take all. That's what really gets people to play at their hardest. When you know that it's all or nothing, you're going to do everything you can. And that's what gets a lot of these ex players to want to play. I mean, guys who are still under contract and would play tomorrow are interested because of that.
Right. All right. Coming up after the break, Steve and I play Would You Rather with 4 different NBA teams, 4 different young teams. So we'll kind of throw that around there for a few minutes coming up after the break. You are listening to Beyond the Arc, presented by TNT Elite Hoops on the iHeartRadio network.
Welcome back to the show that eats, sleeps, and breathes the hardwood. Beyond the Arc, presented by TNT Elite Hoops.
What are you doing?
I'm doing 2 things.
What?
I'm making them mad. Most guys don't play good when they're mad.
Look, you're embarrassing me. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing I'm doing.
I only have 4 words for you. White men can't jump.
Welcome back to Beyond the Arc, presented by TNT Elite Hoops. Live here in the 740 The Game studios on the iHeartRadio network. All right, so I promised we'd play Who Would You Rather before the break, but the censors told us we can't do that. Even though it's like late in the evening, we can't do that. So we'll call this segment 3 Things.
Okay. That sounds interesting.
Yeah. Well,
I'm just kidding.
We hope so.
Right.
So what we'll do is, obviously, we're in that mode of talking about teams in the offseason, moves teams have made in the NBA. And so we're going to talk about 4 teams. And
4 young teams.
4 young, interesting teams. And Steve and I are going to give you 3 things. They might be good, they might be bad.
Or they might be a mixture
of why you should pay attention to these teams. I think that's the best ways I can describe it. We threw this around in many
or why you
different
shouldn't
ways.
pay attention.
Or
why you should just say, you know what, I don't want anybody from that team on my fantasy draft this year.
Yeah. All right, so let's start with the Milwaukee Bucks. 41-41 from last season. They were the number 6 seed in the Eastern Conference.
Yep.
Steve? What are we're going to go one by one or all three. How do you want to do it?
You know what? We'll just do all three.
Okay, I was saying we really didn't work that part out.
This is the team that I really feel great about amongst this group. First of all, the Milwaukee Bucks have a good young nucleus. You look at the fact that they've re-signed Chris Middleton. They bring back Jabari Parker, which, hopefully, injury withholding. Hopefully he stays healthy. You've got Michael Carter-Williams you brought over. Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Ooh, what?
Giannis Antetokounmpo.
I think, we sure?
Yeah. Antetokounmpo. Yeah, it's Antetokounmpo. There you go. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. But anyway, you've got these four guys as a good young nucleus. All of them are on rookie contracts for the next few years. Except for Middleton, I should say. So you've got Parker, Carter-Williams, Antetokounmpo, all on rookie contracts for the next few years. But the bottom line is you got a good young nucleus. Moving on beyond that, they have a defensive mindset for a young team, which can't really be said for another team we'll talk about here in a minute. But for a young team, they're extremely long. Everybody on this team's long. Middleton, Parker, Antetokounmpo, Carter-Williams. You even talk about the addition of Greg Monroe, who's got a 7'2" wingspan. This team is incredibly long, so it'll be hard to get in the paint. Last year, they ranked second in defensive efficiency, just behind Golden State. They're limitless in terms of what they can do on the defensive end. Then my third thing, and it's not necessarily a good thing, but there is some upside here. They do need to get more offensively efficient. They bring in Greg Monroe, who, basically, if you look at his game, very close to being a top 30 player in the league in terms of player efficiency rating, 9th overall amongst qualified centers. He scores more than half of his field goals, gets you about 9 to 10 rebounds a game, and they signed him for $50 million. Here's a guy who probably could have easily went out and got $70 to $80 million, but you sign him for $50 million. You want to talk about a great value pickup in terms of free agency? This was the guy that was probably maybe one of the best value pickups when you consider what he could have gotten compared to what he signed for.
All right, so your three things: good young talent, defensive mindset, but needing a better offensive efficiency rating.
Right, and there's upside there. I think they can do it.
I can feel that. And I'm sort of right in line with you. I'll start on my one thing. I'll go with the free agency or their ability to succeed in the free agent market. First off, the re-signing of Chris Middleton. Now, on the surface, when you look at, Chris Middleton, when you saw the headline, Chris Middleton got a 5-year, $70 million deal, you were like, what?
No, not really, because I knew what the contracts were going to look like this offseason.
You may have said that, but I bet you 90% of the people listening were like, who and what? And then if I tell you, hey, Steve, Des Bryant makes the same amount of money over the same amount of time, you would be like, what?
Not really.
Given
what the NBA is going through right now.
Okay. Right. Des Bryant, Chris Middleton, two different sports. I get it. But, hey, they can hang in the same VIP room, okay, and say, hey, dude, I'm making the same amount of money as you. Okay, anyway, Chris Middleton. But, when you actually dig into it and look, but based on – he's actually one of the top – I think he's about 11th in three-point shooting. So he's a good shooter.
Right. And he has the confidence that I particularly like from a guy who's willing to pull the trigger.
Right. 40.7 from behind the arc last year, which was 11th best in the league. Right. 53% from the field, which on his own team was third best. He actually defensively is a positive for this team. Mm-hmm. And, one of those, now, if you're one of those people that follow the real plus minus, I'm not going to get into what the real plus minus is. Right. You can figure that out. But when I tell you that there were only 9 guys better than Chris Middleton in real plus minus, when you hear these names, you'll be like, oh, Steph Curry, right, James Harden, LeBron, Anthony Davis, Kawhi Leonard, Russ Westbrook, CP3, Draymond Green, and Boogie Cousins.
Right.
All relative all-stars. All all-stars, right? Mm-hmm. So, okay, and then Chris Middleton last year made $1 million. Yeah. Nice upgrade.
Yeah.
Okay, so my
nice bonus.
Part two of that was their signing of Greg Monroe. Greg Monroe I didn't think look, the story on Greg Monroe is as a power forward and a center, you really don't know what he is. He was a power forward in Detroit. He'll probably play as a center for Milwaukee. And either spot, defensively, he's not going to overly impress you.
Well, defensively, he can still get you blocks and steals. He's got good hands, and he's got a lot of wingspan.
Yeah, but the good thing with this team, though, because this team helps. Exactly. He's not a rim protector, but because of the way this team helps and their length, which you brought up, he actually, the benefits of having him are now become on the offensive end because now he takes over for Zaza Pachulia, and he is actually a better offensive, has a chance to be a better offensive producer than Pachulia. We know he can put the ball on the floor, and at the elbow, which a lot of offense from their post is run from that spot on the elbow, and the way Jason Kidd likes to run some sets, you get a big advantage here with Greg Monroe.
Right.
And it will open up some things for the other guys.
Yeah, whenever you can get a big that can kind of stretch the floor a little bit, it opens up the passing lanes.
Okay, sure. Number 2, I want to move on here. Jabari Parker coming back, I think will be huge for this team. In 25 games, Jabari Parker was averaging 12.5 points a game, 5.5 rebounds. He was on his way to pretty much being Rookie of the Year. I think and I say that because this team would have probably they probably would have made the playoffs if Parker still stayed healthy.
They did make the playoffs.
Well, I said they still would have made the playoffs, but it would have the fact that they made the playoffs and him being a rookie and a major reason why would have given him the Rookie of the Year, I feel.
I don't know.
Over Andrew Wiggins, whose team did what?
Well, I mean, but you got to understand that when you don't have a team that does much of anything, you have an opportunity to do everything.
But when you're a starter on a team that's going to the playoffs as a rookie,
right? But when you look
at a contributor,
you look at what everybody else around him is doing, then it kind of takes away from that.
All right, I still believe in Jabari Parker, and now I'm interested to see how he plays coming off the ACL. But I think Parker will make a big difference. Okay. Now, the one thing that worries me when they did make that trade for Michael Carter-Williams,
right?
And they actually traded Brandon Knight, Kendall Marshall. They took a bit of a losing. There was a bit of a losing streak, and they had some losing. They didn't go into the playoffs as hot as they were going into that trade.
Well, there's an adjustment period. You got a new point. I mean, you got to think about it. You have a new point guard.
Look,
that's a big
and
transition.
That sort of goes into my concern is. This is the year. Is this actually the home for Michael Carter-Williams? Because I think this is the year where the Bucks are going to say, "Are we going to make an investment in Michael Carter-Williams going forward, or are we going to have to keep chasing and looking for another point guard?"
Well, I mean, he's a young guy. You have to give.
Yeah, but nobody's showing patience these days.
Well, no, I understand.
Obviously, the Sixers didn't show any patience. They got rid of him a year after they drafted him. They were ready to get rid of him.
Well, I know that, but look, he's got good averages and he plays well. Look, there's people around the league that may not believe in him quite the way other people do.
I'm just saying that Jason Kidd, a point guard, if you can't fall in love with Michael Carter-Williams this season, I don't think they're going to wait around. This isn't a league that waits anymore. Everybody wants something now, and when you just made the playoffs, you can't go backwards.
I think he's got too much to gain and too much upside for them to just say,
All right.
It's not like this is 76ers.
All right. Moving on to team number 2, the Orlando Magic. Finished 25 and 57, last year. You want me to start or you start?
Yeah, no.
All right, 3 things. So, first thing that I like about the Orlando Magic, okay, Scott Skiles.
For how long?
It doesn't matter. Give me Scott Skiles for 3 years over what the Orlando Magic had for the last 3 years. Serious improvement. Well, and part of it is because here's Scott Skiles, who he has never had a team finish outside of the top 16 in defensive efficiency. Okay. He's had teams in 6 of the 13 years that he's coached that have finished in the top 4. Okay. Last year, the Magic were 25th in defensive efficiency. Scott Skiles' teams are consistently in the top half of the NBA in pace. So I think with the backcourt of Oladipo and Elfrid Payton,
right,
defensive-minded guys, there's an opportunity here for this team to play better defensively. I think you have somebody who will put the pieces that they've built together. Okay? Number 2, Aaron Gordon. I liked Aaron Gordon 2 years ago when I first saw him. I liked him at the McDonald's All-American game. I loved him at Arizona. Last year, I can't fault Aaron Gordon because look what Aaron Gordon walked into.
Well, yeah.
Okay, I mean, it was a mess.
Then he had some injuries.
The injury and him sitting out might have been the best thing for Aaron Gordon's whole situation because he got a chance to work on his game. We saw the Aaron Gordon that I expected to see, during the Summer League. Now, it's Summer League. Hold on, folks. I understand that. But it shows that there's a guy who's taking the steps forward.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Okay.
The last thing that, you got to sort of be intrigued about is Tobias Harris. Now, Tobias Harris just signed a 4-year, $64 million deal. He's the highest paid player on this roster.
Right.
Okay. Coming out of the All-Star break, Tobias averaged 20 points, 4.5 assists, almost 4 rebounds, and just under 2 steals a game.
Right.
If that guy can be consistent
mm-hmm.
and run the floor the way Scott Skiles likes to run, along with the new rookie that they got, depending upon how much time they choose to give Mario Hezonja, I got a feeling this team could add, what's realistic, 10 wins?
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's the Eastern Conference, so it could be a little bit more than that.
If they improve defensive efficiency alone by about 10 to 12 spots, all of a sudden it's a better team.
Oh, of course.
Your 3 things.
Well, to add to the defensive mindedness of Scott Skiles, you know what this kind of reminds me of? This kind of reminds me of Mark Jackson in his time with Golden State, where he didn't necessarily fit, rubbed some people the wrong way, kind of like how people are saying Scott Skiles could be, right? But he came in with a tough defensive mentality, turned those young guys into guys who thought about defense first and then focused on offense. What I like is usually with young guys coming into this game, that's the part of the floor they have to focus on. So when you get a guy that can come in and get these guys to be tougher and get them to understand NBA defense and the speed of the game starts to slow down, then you're able to take guys like Payton, Oladipo, even Hezonja or Gordon, guys who have perimeter defensive ability and some upside, and really turn them into a group that can really do some things for you. That's one. 2, the youth factor. I like the fact that their core of Vucevic, Oladipo, Payton, and Harris, they're just under 23 years of age.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If you look at Harris, he just turned 23, I think, like last month.
Right.
I mean, there's so much upside within those guys. And then the last thing, they're improving their bench slowly but surely. They add C.J. Watson as the veteran backup point guard. Andrew Nichols is a guy who played well in the Pan Am games for Canada, and Jason Smith was a solid pickup. So they're kind of rounding out that lineup a little bit.
All right, coming up after the break, we're going to get into the last 2 teams, the Hornets, Pelicans, and then we go 8 great questions from Chris, and that'll close it down. You're listening to Beyond the Arc, presented by TNT Elite Hoops on the iHeartRadio network.
Welcome back to the show featuring 2 hoops junkies who need to work on their free throws. Beyond the Arc, presented by TNT Elite Hoops. Visit TNTEliteHoops.com to make your hoops game better today.
All right. Buddy, get the ball to Jimmy. Top the key. Buster, just spread the floor. Let's go.
Welcome back to Beyond the Arc, presented by TNT Elite Hoops on the iHeartRadio network. Steve and I are playing the 3 things game, and this is the speed round edition. As we go through our last 2 teams, the Charlotte Hornets and the New Orleans Pelicans. Steve, 3 things on the Chicago Charlotte Hornets. Still want to say Bobcats. 33-49 last year, 4th in the Southeast Division.
Yeah, so I mean, to me, they're one of the better offensive teams in the league, at least in terms of potential, and especially if they stay healthy. They were number 9 in offensive efficiency last year, so I like their upside offensively. Re-signing Anthony Davis to a 5-year, $145 million deal, it's hard not to like. But if you look at his playoff series last year, 31.5 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 blocks per game, a guy that you can count on to take you through a deep playoff run as long as they can put a good roster on him for years to come. The only thing I don't like, well, one of a few things I don't like about this team, but I'll conclude it by just saying this in general. Health issues. Guys like Ryan Anderson, Drew Holiday, Eric Gordon missed a ton of games over the last 2 seasons. Norris Cole still unsigned, so there could be some depth issues at point guard. I know, Tyreek Evans has played some point guard, even led the team in assists last year. But in terms of depth at that position, and just the fact that Drew Holiday, Ryan Anderson, be guys who can score for you in and out of the lineup, I just don't like that. So if they can stay healthy, New Orleans can definitely slide into maybe a 7 spot this year in the playoffs if they can stay healthy.
So let's correct something. I started with the Hornets, and you went to the Pelicans. So but who were what? I see how we can mix that up. As seeing as how the Hornets were in New Orleans. So we went the Pelicans, 45-37 last year, the 8 seed out of the West. That's all right. It's easy, Charlotte, New Orleans, Pelicans, Hornets. I get it.
Close enough.
All right, my 3 things are concerns. This is a team you fired Monty Williams last year. Right. You asked Monty Williams to get to the playoffs. He got to the playoffs on the last day of the NBA season, and you fired him. Then you hired Alvin Gentry from Golden State over Jeff Van Gundy. I don't know. I think maybe that might have been hey, we want a guy fresh off an NBA championship. I don't know. Alvin Gentry may be a good coach. It's not a sexy selection, but who's making sexy selections for head coaches anymore? Okay. Number 2, this is a big year for Eric Gordon, IU Hoosier, and Ryan Anderson. They're in a contract year, but can they stay healthy? Big problem, big question. If those 2 stay healthy throughout the long haul, maybe, just maybe, this team can fend off a couple of Western Conference teams like Oklahoma City. I mean, there are some teams that didn't make the playoffs. Oklahoma City, Phoenix, for example, 2 teams that are going to be hungry to get into the playoffs this upcoming year. And the last thing, the big 2 big signings. One, Omar Asik, 5 years, $60 million.
Omar Asik, big signing.
Big signing.
You see my face?
Big signing.
Okay.
Anthony Davis extension, 5 year, $145 million.
With the little pinky?
With the pinky. My God. That's okay.
Anyways.
MVP next year or bust.
There you go.
All right, now we go to the Charlotte Hornets. And I'll tell you what, for me, 3 things. One, I'm not really buying Frank Kaminsky being worth not trading on draft day for 4 first-round picks.
Right.
That's what you put in Frank Kaminsky. Oh, be that good that you're worth us not getting 4 first-round draft picks. Second thing, when is Michael Kidd-Gilchrist going to finally become that guy that we remember at Kentucky? This is his, 3rd year?
Right.
When is Cody Zeller going to be the guy that was on the cover of Sports Illustrated as a preseason player of the year? He's in his 2nd year. They couldn't even get rid of Cody Zeller, and they got rid of Noah Vonleh. Why did they even draft Noah Vonleh anyway? And then the last thing, Nicholas Batum. Okay, he has enough of a presence on both ends of the floor to help out Kemba Walker and Al Jefferson. I think people forgot about him last year. He had a bad year on a bad team. If he comes to play, I like what they've got. Go.
All right, so terrible offensively last year, just in terms of being in the bottom tier of the league in pace and offensive efficiency. That's one. So their offense was atrocious last year. They need a 3rd scorer, but I question whether or not Nicholas Batum can actually be that guy. He's projected to be a 3-and-D guy, a guy who can shoot the 3 for you and play defense in multiple positions on the other end of the floor. But last year he shoots 33% from deep, and he was 23rd in the league in defensive real plus-minus, which you can Google, amongst all active small forwards last year. I particularly think that the spotlight gets bigger on him and people start to see that maybe he's not as good as people thought he was when he was in Portland. Then my last thing is too much uncertainty. Like you mentioned, you got Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. Does he actually form a jumper sometime this season and actually take that next step in his game? And then they signed Jeremy Lin. They've got Tyler Hansborough, Spencer Hawes, Jeremy Lamb. All guys that are kind of in that meh, I don't really know what they're going to be able to do category. So how much did they really upgrade? Too much uncertainty.
All right, so now we move to, in the speed round edition, as we try to get to the end of the show, May not be 8 questions, but questions. Ask, Chris.
All right, guys. Well, I don't know you that well, so let me ask you. Who are you guys' favorite teams?
I'm an Indiana Pacers fan. Die hard.
I'm a Bulls fan.
Are you diehard as well?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. If you could, name your all-time favorite respective Pacers players and your respective Bulls players.
You want to go first?
I'll gladly go first. Let me start at the point guard position.
Travis Best?
No. Oh, no. God, no. Not after what he did to us in the 2000 NBA Finals.
Moving on.
Thank you. How about a man who was on the 1984 Olympic team starting at the point guard, my man Vern Fleming. Of course, the shooting guard, you all know, NBA Hall of Famer, Reggie Miller. The three. Let's go to the late Wayman Tisdale, drafted number 2 in the 1984 draft behind Patrick Ewing. Love Wayman, rest his soul, loved him. At the 4, the rifleman, Chuck Person. God, I love that dude. That dude had stones. And then, of course, the big man in the middle, the Duncan Dutchman, Rick Smits. Take it to the bank. And Jalen Rose coming off the bench as a 6th man.
There you go. So my starting 5 for my all-time Bulls team would be starting at point guard, Derrick Rose. At my 2, of course, there would be nobody other than his airness himself, Michael Jordan. At the 3, Scottie Pippen, one of the all-time 50 greatest players. Dennis Rodman would play my 4. I could slide him over and play the 5 if I needed to, because my 5 has been talked about as being a guy who could be a little soft, but he's very skilled. And my 5 would be Pau Gasol. If you think about all the centers the Bulls have had over the entire franchise history,
Luke Longley, Bill Winnington,
garbage,
Horace Grant.
garbage, and Horace Grant was a 4. He wasn't a 5.
Okay.
So I get a skilled big man, and I can put Dennis Rodman next to him to kind of take up for that lack of toughness, lack of defense, lack of rebounding. And my 6th man, the waiter, Tony Kukoc.
Oh God! Wow. Okay.
My 6 will crush your 6.
I don't know the Bulls all time, but I question Derrick Rose. That man cannot stay healthy.
All I need is for one game.
You see,
he still can't stay healthy.
Yeah. Next question. Next question, Chris.
Is James Harden worthy of being Adidas' $200 million man?
Let me run this off. So, according to hoopshype.com, 283 NBA players wear Nike compared to 70 who wear Adidas. Adidas offers the biggest shoe free agent of the year, James Harden, a 13-year, $200 million deal. Is he worth it? Of course he is. Because think about who they have in their portfolio. Derrick Rose, who we just mentioned, is injury prone. It's hard to market a guy who can't put your shoes on because he's on the sidelines wearing, wearing wingtips.
That's fair.
It's kind of hard to market a guy like Damian Lillard, who plays for a lesser known, lesser watched Portland team. It's hard to market Dwight Howard, who injuries, soft play in LA, quote unquote off court lifestyle. We won't say is exactly what. It's hard to really market him. And then John Wall, great player, but is he really a marketable pitch man?
I'll keep this simple for you, Steve. Yes, because James Harden is the people's and the players' MVP. Next question, Chris.
Does the Sacramento Kings hiring of Nancy Lieberman point to an NBA future with a woman as a head coach?
I would say yes. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I think Becky Hammon's laid the groundwork. What is mystifying is Nancy Lieberman is a Hall of Famer. If anybody should have been the first, might have been outside of Pat Summitt, should have been Nancy Lieberman. But, timing and circumstances, congratulations to Becky Hammon.
Yeah, it's a copycat league. So I think if the guys respond well to the coaching of Lieberman and Becky Hammon, which I think they will, I think the rest of the league will pick up on it, and I think you'll definitely see a woman as a head coach at some point.
All right. So that's going to do it. I don't think we've got enough time for 5 more questions.
No.
We'll save these questions for next week. If you've got some questions for us, send them to us on Twitter at BTA Hoops, on Facebook, Beyond the Arc Podcast. Where else can you find us?
At BTA Hoops on Twitter. You can search for us on Stitcher for old episodes of the show. You can also find us on YouTube at Hardwood Hoops Central, looking for our old shows as well. And you can